Chapter 3.1, Part 5. So we were looking at the canopic jars with hieroglyphics, and then we're going to move into Queen Tiye of Egypt. This is King Tut's grandmother, and King Tut's father makes a break in the traditions and the beliefs, also the artwork for a short time. And perhaps this was made during that time, but it was more realistic likeness. Nefertiti is very similar. Nefertiti is this woman's mother-in-law, perhaps. It might be his Nefertiti's mom. I'm not exactly sure. But this is made out of wood, and the only reason it has survived is because it was in a tomb and also in a dry desert climate. Faience right here, that is a mixture of clay and glaze mixed together. It's also called Egyptian paste, and I believe we're seeing it. It's usually bluish around the ring here. A little bit hard to tell the material breakdown here because we have some damage, but I believe that the face was the yew and ebony. Usually when the first material is listed, that means it's the most common thing there. So gold is third. So I think the gold is covering some of these parts here, and there was gold around here in the earrings and so on. But there's also some textiles and some silver. So when her son was made pharaoh, he deified her and changed the sculpture. He gave her these two feathers to show sort of like a sainthood, and her son believed in one god, the sun god Re or Ra, and he's symbolized by the disc that we saw in the middle between the two horns. So he made some changes to her sculpture, and he was trying to put forth a single deity, but it didn't go over for long. King Tut switches it back when he takes over the throne. Very short period of time. And I think King Tut's father did not live very long. Okay, so this is the fowling scene. This is one of the best extant, meaning existing and intact pieces of fresco. It says painted plaster. I'm sorry, that threw me off. Painted plaster is a fresco. I don't know why it's not fresco on there. But this is the tomb of Nabanum, or Nabam-un. I did that backwards too. Okay, so this is our style that we acquaint with Egyptian art. The side view of the torso. Sorry, frontal view of the torso, side view of the head, side view of the feet. Now he's got hierarchical scale going on here because look how small everybody else is around him. Okay, the pharaoh is the important person. This is a hunting scene, and they have said, research-wise, they've gone in and looked at these fish and birds and so on, that these animals exist still today. And see here we have a tabby cat grabbing a bird. Now the Egyptians were the ones who domesticated cats, or cats rather domesticated themselves. They're the only animals to do so. You can look that up. So I think about 10,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, not that long comparative to all the other animals that already had been domesticated. Dogs had been domesticated already for thousands of years. So this is an accurate depiction of a lot of the animals, but of course the humans are stylized. All right, he's on the river here. He's got some reeds here, papyrus. That's what the flowers look like if you've ever seen it. And he's sailing along here on the Nile on a hunting exhibition, catching birds. So that's called fowling. Birds are fowl. This is what he's hoping to where he's hoping to be in the afterlife, hunting with his wife and daughter, and the importance of the River Nile. Those highlights are there, and of course the mother and daughter, mom. Daughter's tiny, little miniature adult. Hierarchical scale is shown there by him being larger. Oh, yummy. This is just so beautiful. And it's even more beautiful because this photograph is giving us so much detail in a really gorgeous amount of low light. Gold doesn't always photograph really well. And this is just a beautiful, stunning job of this solid gold mask. Okay, just think about this thing. It's almost 2 feet high, very beautifully, carefully made. The lapis in here with the blue, that's the lapis lazuli, and around the eyes, all kinds of different stones. The red is likely jasper. That's probably turquoise. And then the vitreous paste is also the Egyptian paste or faience. And I'm not exactly sure what we're looking at. I believe that's going to be right here. So we have all this gold with all this inlay, really stunning example of Egyptian art. And remember, it's got to really look like him, and that's the great part. One of the highlights, I should say, there's so many with Egyptian art, of seeing a portrait, whoops, this far back, that we see all these portraits of these different pharaohs and people, because it's really important to depict them accurately, to embody the Ka and have the Ba. There's different spirits, and I put a link in there for you guys to look at, to meet in the afterlife. So it was discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, and it is now in Egypt, but it toured around all over the world in the 70s, and again later, more recently. But a lot of people have seen the treasures from this tomb. It was never pilfered and looted, so we were very lucky in there. So it's an idealized portrait, so an image the soul could enter because it is so accurate. Does that make sense? So inlays semi-precious stone, colored glass, and faience. Okay, we're going to get into ancient Greece here. So we're going to move north across the Mediterranean. And Greece and Rome are thought of as the beginnings of democracy 2,000 years ago. So some of the idealizations and the social structure have affected us in the current era. And when we get into the Renaissance and then the Age of Enlightenment, we get into looking back to ancient Greece and to Rome for some role models for the Senate and for various other ideas. The idea that athleticism was pursued, it was a democratic culture, intellectual culture, philosophy, math, and sciences. Much of our educational system is based on the things they studied in this time 2,000 years ago. Human bodies, mostly male, are idealized, and there's a really careful mathematical system of proportion to the architecture, to other things too, but architecture is what we're going to look at. So this is the Acropolis. This is still here. This is sort of like a mesa in the middle of the town of Athens, Greece. This is Athens, Greece. Now the rooftops don't look like this anymore. There's high rises and skyscrapers all around this now, but this is still here, and we're going to see some views of the actual current status of it. The Parthenon, sadly, it was there until I think the 1800s. Somebody during one of these various wars in Europe stored a bunch of ammunition in there, and somebody shot it to destroy the ammunition store, or an accidental fire went off. I'm not sure, but this was destroyed. So it lasted for 1700 years and then was blown up by a more modern warfare. There's several temples here, the Temple of Athena Nike and some other structures, steps that went up from the base of this. Those steps I don't believe are still there. You have to kind of walk around a hiking path in a different place now. But it's an absolutely stunning masterpiece, and we're going to look at some of the buildings there. So it's the best known Acropolis in Athens. So this is a high city, and it's dedicated to Athena, the goddess of war, wisdom, and the arts. That was the Parthenon was her building. The original temple complex was destroyed by Persians in 480 BC, and then a new temple was built called the Parthenon. Okay, we looked a little bit at our Greek orders in our architectural chapter, so we'll go over this again just quickly, but you can look at this a little bit more clearly in the PowerPoint. You have here, you're going to have your pediment here is this triangular part of the structure. the entablature is kind of the lintel, or the yeah, it is the lintel that goes across the front of the structure, and then you have your columns here. Doric is simplified. You notice there's nothing at the bottom. Ionic has the volutes with the curls, and it has sort of pillowy, puffy forms down here. Corinthian, they each kind of build on each other. Corinthian is later, and then you have those forms at the base, the fluting as you did with the previous two, and now you've got the acanthus leaves and the mini volutes here, those little tiny volutes. So this volute is incorporated here, but then we add to it, if that makes sense. So it gets more and more complex, and this will come up. If you get into any more art history, you will definitely need to know all of this. So this is developed by the Greeks. The Romans end up using it later as well. The Doric is the least ornamental. And I'm going to skip this part. And here's our Parthenon. Oh, so amazing. Just absolutely stunning. And you can see the frieze up here in the entablature is still somewhat intact. And there have been some, how do you want to say, some parts put back in, but it's been reassembled and the steps are there. But the roof blew off, like I said, in the 1700s. So this was rebuilt in 400 BC. So actually it lasted about 2100 years and then was semi-destroyed. But there's a lot of ruins, but you can go up there, you can walk around and check it out. And this is a white, it was covered in white marble and it was painted. So a lot of people think that sculpture from ancient Greece and Rome is all white marble, but actually it was all painted. But I don't know if you heard what I said earlier. When you put paint onto stone, especially marble, it doesn't stick for very long. The heating and shrinking of the paint is more extreme than the stone, tends to pop off. Also, there were gold and ivory sculptures inside. So it was for Athena. There was a tall sculpture of Athena within the Parthenon. Okay, so we're going to look at a part of the frieze here in combat at the Parthenon. Remember our little segment up here? I think we're looking, I'm pretty sure this is the west facing, and I think that would be the south facing part of the Parthenon here. So this is a centaur and metope of Lapith in combat. Sorry, 4th of July, I still have my neighbors, or it's like World War III over here. Okay, so sculptural reliefs in the metopes, okay, so up in that top part, they depict mythical battle of the Lapiths and centaurs, and this is symbolic of the Athenians' battle with the Persians. So they're commemorating this in the temple for Athena. Remember, she's the goddess of war. So that's why we're going to put all battle scenes on there. These are now in the British Museum. There's a big controversy about this now. I do a segment on this in a different class, but they're called the Elgin Marbles. This isn't the Elgin Marbles,